Oh shit, we're live.
Hi.
What's happening?
Hello, everyone.
So for those of you who don't know who that is, I've got a very special guest on the podcast today. My wife.
Wifey.
Wife. It sounds so weird to say that. Because we literally just got married. But I think we jump ahead. Welcome, everybody, to season 2 of the podcast. For those of you who don't even know, there actually was a season 1. It was so long ago, it might not even seem like it. We're doing some digging up now. The last episode we did of season 1 was more than like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And
a lot has happened since.
Yeah, we did 30. I did 30 episodes, and you didn't actually appear on any of them.
No, I was too shy.
Way too shy. And even now, I mean, like it was a month or 2 ago, and I was trying to like propose the idea that we do podcasts together, and you were like, okay, love, if that makes you happy, I'll do a podcast with you.
Yeah.
But you didn't take me too seriously.
And now I decided to jump on when I've got hectic pregnancy brain. So 7 months pregnant and sitting on a podcast.
You're going to do just fine. So, start of season 2 is going to be a bit different to season 1. I think we're going to do a lot more conversations together. That's the plan.
Sharing our experiences.
Yeah, just more chatting about our life experiences and what's going on. There's a lot, eh?
There's been so much that's gone on. So much learning, so much growth.
So much stuff that we actually haven't had time to sit down. We've been planning on doing this podcast for ages now. Just so many things keep popping up.
We find ourselves sitting at the dinner table just having these awesome conversations. Like, fuck, we should actually just film this on a podcast.
And
So
put it
here
out
we
there.
are.
Yeah.
Here we are.
And it's your birthday today.
It is.
29.
29.
We didn't even plan on doing the podcast today. You just
No.
woke up and you're like, maybe we should just do the podcast. Get
I
it
was feeling
get it
inspired.
rolling. Because it's all that momentum. It takes a while to get going, but once it's going, it's built. And definitely found that with season 1. So maybe we should actually start there. For those who are joining in who are like, don't know anything about us or about this journey so far, maybe we should go back to that and kind of recap a little bit about the process of getting to where we're at now.
Well, the journey of the podcast and how it's kind
and
of
then-
progressed our life. Yeah, it's changed our lives for the better.
Yeah, in so many ways.
The way we live,
Everything.
our
I mean,
friends group,
everything's
the
changed
business.
because of the first season.
because of the first season.
Yeah.
And I
So
think basically it all started, for those who don't know. You were going a little bit crazy during COVID, dark night of the soul, and felt like you needed to wake everyone up and get this information out there. And I would come home and you were speaking these long form dialogues to yourself on your phone. I thought, shit, you're really good at storytelling. You're good at conversations. Maybe you should have them with someone else on the other side. And so I inspired you to get guests on. And that just kind of rippled into what our life is now.
Yeah, so it was COVID lockdown, like you said. I think witnessing all the crazy shit going on in the world was just too much at some point, and seeing how bizarre it all became. And then I just one day, like, I wasn't the one to make videos on my phone, but I made a video about commenting about something, and it just kicked off. And I had nothing else to do during lockdown, so I just make the videos talking about all the crazy shit, and I really enjoyed it. But then, like you said, I should start a podcast. And at the time, I was like, well, who am I to start a podcast? Because, you know, that self-doubt and the imposter syndrome. And I was like, well, you know what? The only thing I actually did enjoy doing up until that time was listening to podcasts and learning things. And, like, I felt like podcasts had changed my life in so many ways. And so starting my own podcast was like, okay, cool, let's do this. And
Then the challenge came in with finding guests, and that was a whole new
yeah,
journey.
even just finding guests and starting, like, I committed to doing 10
That's a good sign,
That's a
guys.
good
We love
sign.
that sign.
we love that sound.
That sound is money.
We've got the Shopify app on our phones for our store. So every time orders come in, it goes to ching.
Oh, we manifest more.
And it's the coolest sound in the world. It's like, yes, another order. But so Apollo, for those who can't see, I got my dog here. And also for those of you by any chance watching this, there's a reason why I got to look like Nelly at the moment. I got
Is it our Nelly?
no, it was Nelly. I think
What's
his
his
name was
name?
Nelly.
Nelly.
That
Nelly.
rapper used to have a
Yeah,
plaster
yeah.
under his eye all the time.
Yeah.
I was setting up this podcast, and the equipment has been so long since we used it that it was actually a bit rusty. So I was like trying to open the stand, and the leg like sprung out and hit me in the face and cut my cheek open. So, but anyway, I digress. So the podcast started with a lot of self-doubt. I was like, well, who am I to start a podcast? Anyway, I was like, you know what? I don't care how bad it is. At least I had you who believed in me, and you were like, you should just do it, love. And I was like, well, why not? At that point, you're the only person who really mattered in my life. So I was like, well, fuck. If you think I should do it, then I should do it. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do, no matter how bad it is, I'm going to do 10 episodes. And those 10 episodes were super bad. If I look back, I mean, I cringed at like the start of it all. But as with anything, you can't start anything and be anywhere near good at it. And still today, I mean, I still feel like this is very amateur hour and we're still learning. But
I'm definitely still learning with my first podcast, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's been such a cool journey. And that first 30 episodes, it just spiraled into like every new guest that I met introduced me to more guests, and then that connected us to more people who introduced us to new things. And like you said earlier, even to living in Scarborough now, was the reason we're living there is because I came to do a podcast with somebody, a friend of ours up the road, Joelle, who's like one of our best friends now. And the connections were made through the podcast, but putting myself out there and just talking to people and asking them about their stories and like how it is that they did. Because I think losing my job at the time, not having anything besides a podcast, I was fascinated as to, you know, all kinds of things. And then it was like, okay, trying to interview people who were in my mind a bit, who had cool stories to tell and who were successful in whatever way that was. But I must say towards the end of season 1, a lot had changed up until then. But then it was also a case of, okay, in a good way, realizing, after talking to all these people, realizing like they're all just people like you and me, and there's nobody that's inherently better at anything than anybody else, whether that's business, whether that's fitness, whether that's whatever it is that people are doing, anybody can do it. And it became a case of like, okay, podcasts had to come to an end for that phase of our life, but there was a more exciting phase starting, and that was like starting a business and doing a whole bunch of other things and progressing in our own way.
Yeah, well, the podcast started the business essentially. You had the idea, and then, you know, we got linked up with even the mycologists that we use now, and it just kind of spiraled into one product at a time. That
is true. Because for those who don't know, we didn't actually, the business which we sell our products now wasn't the beginning. The LifeXpanded brand actually started as a podcast.
Guys, if you wanted to know the beginning of our story, we thought we were going to be travel influencers. Our name was like something like Unconventional Escapades, and we were going to make travel videos and travel
we did the whole Instagram page thing, and we were going to do the travel couple thing.
But from the very beginning, we wanted to start a brand together. We just didn't quite have the direction.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of trial and error, a lot of cringe moments looking back, and but it's all part of the...
It's part of the journey, and that's what happened with the business. We started actually, you know, delving into our psychedelic journeys and meeting people along the way, and then wanting to share that medicine with the world. And then that just kind of, you know, built on one another. And, you know, now we have how many products?
So we've got 10 of our own products, growing nicely, and it's been such a crazy experience. We still wake up some days like, holy shit, like what's going on?
Yeah.
But we've built a brand up now, and we also continue to grow, but the growth is consistent. And it's, you know, I think for me specifically, I was very good at what I did and still do, which was aviation, and I just never thought business was anything that I would be good at, and I didn't think I was a businessman. I used to tell people like the last thing I am is a businessman. I don't know how to do business. But like anything, you can learn anything. And I think the barriers to entry of starting a business are so small these days. So, I'm just so glad we took the leap and when we started bit by bit. And I think...
So am I. And that's why we started season 2. To share that experience with you guys and hopefully inspire others to start their dream.
To just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Just to wrap up the kind of the recap of what happened. So we had started the podcast. We did we were doing the podcast. In that time, I went back to work. You had your practice. You were still a biokinetist then and working with people. But I think we realized quite quickly that the life we wanted to live was constrained by the environment that we were working in, especially with the COVID shit. And I say that because it was really crazy to have to just behave in the way that we did. And so me going back to work at Comair and flying, and you were back at your practice with people who also like weirdly scared to interact with you without masks and all that. And I was forced to wear masks all day, and just all the things that were coming with that led to a point where I left that career and with no plan, just kind of putting faith in the universe. And I think after, like you mentioned, the psychedelic journeys we've done, especially for me, that was Iboga on my 30th, and some other powerful ones we had that just really allowed us to get to a point where we could take a leap of faith and not being in a sort of fear of relying on whatever industries we were in and believing that's all we could do, and just stepping out of that and then like, okay, let's see what happens. And so many beautiful things happen along that way, but also a lot of necessary suffering happened, I think, with the miscarriages that you went through.
Yeah, I think after that first Iboga journey for your 30th, was obviously my first one too, and in that journey I remember hearing the cry of my child, my unborn child, and I'd never really thought of it prior to that journey, and I came out of that only wanting a child, and that started my journey of fertility and the suffering that came with it, which was so necessary. For those who don't know, I didn't really suffer in my life. I had
Princess Tara.
I was very lucky to have an incredible childhood, incredible parents, and all the opportunities placed in front of me with no real suffering. And so my suffering came later on in life when I experienced multiple miscarriages, and that can be tough for those out there going through the same thing. And, you know, it's when you're going through that, there's nothing more you want in the world than to have a child, and then, you know, you feel like you can't. You feel like your body's broken. You feel like you're failing as a woman. But ultimately that was also necessary because it brought so much growth, so much healing. And now I'm 7 months pregnant. So really looking forward to sharing my fertility journey on this new season 2.
I think we'll do a lot of that this season.
Yeah, a lot of that. I think there were so many changes that came in my life. So many lifestyle changes, dietary changes, thought pattern changes, and training changes. There's so many changes to lead up to where I am now.
So many changes constantly, and I think that that's the first time I actually ever saw you suffer, like properly suffer. But through that, you evolved a lot, and then the growth always, as we know, comes through the suffering. So that, I think, in its own way was necessary. In hindsight, looking back, it's like if we had to become parents at that point, when I didn't have income, we didn't have a business at the time, we would have been completely out of our depth.
It's crazy how blinded I was. I was so dead set on having a child. I didn't care about the rest.
I know.
The universe had another plan.
And your first miscarriage was twins.
Yes, yeah.
So imagine having 2 babies and like
no income,
nothing.
Business wasn't really set up yet. So
it would have been a nightmare.
But I needed that. I needed that to kickstart my growth, and I think we also needed that to kind of determine what path we wanted to take and how we wanted to create a home where you didn't have to leave, I didn't have to leave, and
we can do things on our terms.
Yeah, exactly.
The things changing constantly was also a reason to take a break from after the first season, because you get into a habit of becoming too fixated on things, and then that's what you want to talk about, and and all these things. But then again, once you think you know something, you limit yourself. So they're constantly learning and realizing, like, shit, I actually don't know anything about this. Over and over and over again. I think also to some degree, I stopped putting myself out there publicly and talking about things, because although I was certain about a lot of things, I realized as I kept going down this path, it was like, oh, actually I was wrong about that thing 6 months ago, but that had then evolved into something else. So I was constantly learning, as we always are, but
the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Exactly.
That kind of got to you, yeah.
So that's why I've also been quite pulled back, even on social media recently, because I used to be, quite vocal opinionated about things, but more so observing it now, and I think there's power in not claiming to know all these things all the time. But then again, it's like you also want to put value out there to people, because we've gone through so many changes over the years that if we look back to when we started dating like 4 years ago, we're like different people. Yeah. And we have put ourselves out there, and we've learned a lot of different things, and we've come quite a far way for ourselves. I might say that myself.
We've come a very far way.
And yes, I think that's the intention behind season 2, is recognizing all of that, being like, okay, we don't know that, we don't have the answers for everything, and even with our business, we're super proud of our products, but we can't help everybody, and we chat to people all the time, and it's been such an incredible journey of doing things that work for us, putting that more out there, helping other people, that specifically the products. I mean, we get such incredible feedback from so many people, and I've really enjoyed doing that and putting ourselves out there and helping people and building this brand. So, but now it's like, okay, cool, let's package that into the podcast and chat about our day-to-day things that I think we encounter and more people are encountering out there. And when you talk about some things, all of a sudden there's all these people that come on like, yeah, I've actually been going through that, and I didn't know the other people that are also going through that. So I think that's just the intention behind season 2. Chat about real shit.
Yeah, and just kind of what we've been going through. I mean, we've started antenatal classes. We're really getting into the mindset of becoming parents and learning a lot.
Okay, so let's quickly go back to now. We've kind of fast tracked up until this point. Now we're at the beginning of this year. Okay, I'd gone back to work. So I took a year sabbatical. After I left Common, I left my work, and I was like, okay, fuck it, caution to the wind. We're going to create our own lives. We're going to do all these things. I started the business. A year later, all cool and well, the business is growing, but it's still starting, and we're running out of money very quickly because, as you know,
when you start a business, all the money goes back into the business.
Yeah, so the money, everything but the money that was coming in was going straight back into the business, and there was lots of extra money that was needed, and so I was like, shit, okay, it's time for me to go back to work, to earn money, to let the business organically grow, but that meant leaving you behind for the first time. And you were very reliant on me in terms of just having somebody around. And so
that was very hard for me when you left. I didn't think it was going to be that challenging to live in Scarborough by myself with the 2 dogs in quite a big house, away from my family. Those who don't know, my family lives about an hour and a half away. And I really had to learn how to lean on community and make time for others, because I'm quite an introvert.
Very much so.
Very recluse.
Yeah.
So it was a big learning curve for me, you leaving.
Just talk a little bit either louder or closer into the mic there, my love.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah, so Tara...
but I took charge of the business.
Yeah, but you had to. And so that's why, again, it was very good for your growth. I mean, the last year I've been working away on pretty much a 2-month, 1-month rotation, where I work for 2 months, come back home for 1 month. And so you had to become very independent, basically run the business on the day-to-day, fulfilling of orders and making sure they all go out and all the capsuling and all that. Luckily, we've gotten to the point where we're starting to outsource all those things.
Thank goodness.
But you were pretty much hands-on doing the labor every single day.
Yeah.
While I was away and running the things from my side on the back end and chatting to customers all day. And
which was a good thing for me. I think it allowed me to kind of form more of a bond with the business. Because I did feel a bit detached from it initially.
Yeah.
Because when we started it, like we mentioned previously, I was going through the suffering of miscarriages, and so I didn't really feel like I was invested in the business until you left. And so I think that was very necessary for me to feel like, okay, this is also my baby, let me take charge here.
For sure. I think the beginning days were messy because it was me sitting with a 100 capsule counter machine on the dining room table, like making these little capsules and then selling it to our friends, and then
making little pamphlet brochures on WhatsApp and sending it to people and giving samples out. And
and it was such an exciting time, but it was chaotic. And then
then you left and contract work started, and it's been a year?
It's been a year essentially, the last episode we did of season 1 was last year, March. And then I remember we went to Africa Burn as like a final celebration before I left, and we never went to Africa Burn, which I think is a whole nother podcast. And then I left in May for contract, and so I've been pretty much doing it a year now, but it's time to put that chapter to an end soon as well, and
take the business really to a whole new level, which it is. I mean, what do you say, we making 6 figures now?
6 figures since the beginning of the year. Every month we're turning over, and I think we're proud of ourselves for that, because I would never have thought that's possible when we started. And now it's looking ahead and being like, okay, cool, what is now possible? And I think that saying is so true. What you overestimate what you can do in 1 year, but you underestimate what you can do in 10. And it's like in the first year of the business, I was like, yes, I'm going to make millions. I was like laughing at how naive we are. But now I'm like, oh, okay, now I can really see the potential of what we can actually do. And so that compounding growth with word of mouth and just doing the simple things over and over and over again. And as you've obviously seen my obsession with that's Alex Hormozy. He's one of the most incredible guys I'll try to follow in and getting business advice from. And so learning so much key things from him. But anyway, I digress. So the business has been
I must commend you. You've honestly, like you said in the beginning, you're not a businessman, but you've really taken the initiative to learn. And I mean, we've made mistakes along the way, but you've definitely kept your eyes on the prize
We made a lot of mistakes. Fuck, we wasted a lot of money.
Yeah,
My
wasted a
God,
lot
there's
of
been so
money.
many times we were like, I don't think we need to buy that. I don't think we need to get that. I'm like, no, we need to buy that. We need to get all the stock. We need to get 5,000 bottles from China. And but it's all been a massively cool learning curve. And now I think you have to pay your school fees, they call it, your learning fees. And that's like part of the process. But over time now you learn the lessons, and then you continually grow, and then you don't waste as much, and you don't make as many mistakes, and you learn how to deal with customers better. You learn how to get the processes more efficiently, operating. And but yeah, so I left. You struggled a lot initially, but you forced you to get out, socialize with more people, because like you said, you're quite an introvert, and you like to stay just in your own little bubble. If you were up to you before any of this, you would have just been happy with me and you doing our thing for the rest of our life. And
that comes up to upbringing, I must say.
Yeah.
Parents also very much
very introverted.
very
they
introverted,
say to
yes.
themselves, whereas my parents are the opposite.
Yes.
So we come from completely polar opposite family lifestyles. And
I don't think you can get two more opposite people, yet we are so similar. And the
In many
similarities
ways.
brought us together.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
And then we realized
But
actually
opposites
how different.
attract.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
and we're very much opposite in many ways. But it's been a cool yin yang balance thing going on.
Yeah.
And I've had to pull you one way, you've had to pull me one way, because I've gone too extreme in some things and you've gone too extreme, and it's like, extremes are never good, as we've learned. I mean, we both were vegan for how long? It almost fucking killed us.
7 years.
That's also another whole podcast.
That's going to come with the fertility series, I reckon.
It's chatting about diet.
Yes,
and
definitely.
the vegan trap and
The vegan trap.
so many things.
Don't come for us.
Hey?
Don't come for us, the vegans.
The vegans are not going to like that one. And I know, because I was one of those vegans, those angry vegans, like, who just thought they knew it all. But again, these identities that we attach ourselves to can just actually cause more problems than anything else. So peeling back the layers of identity and all the things we think we are and should be in, all these labels, has been quite liberating. But that led us to the beginning of this year, and then we planned to do a little detox retreat where we're going to just go check in with ourselves, because I'd also been had been kind of just feeling a bit stuck.
I was dying at that point.
Oh yeah, you were dying.
I was dying. Guys, December got me bad. I drank way too much, if I'm being honest. And
oh yeah, because I was away.
you were
Tara
away.
was partying it up.
And
She doesn't really party.
I let my freak flag high.
Tequila
You
Tara.
got what you wanted. I became the biggest extrovert.
Yeah, but I wasn't. Yeah,
You weren't here, and all my friends were keeping me company, and I gave
Lots of
myself
parties
stomach ulcers and H. pylori and all of that after getting my dental implants. That was a whole other thing. 3 rounds of antibiotics and not replenishing my gut microbiome properly afterwards, and I really, really suffered. I honestly, guys, I couldn't eat without excruciating pain in my stomach. I was put on all sorts of medication. It wasn't helping. And then by the time we booked in for that retreat in February, I honestly felt like I was on my deathbed. Like, I walked in there and I saw Stuart and Natasha, and I gave her a hug and I said, please help me. And that week honestly changed my life. I mean, it changed our lives with baby boy on board. But I don't think my body would have been able to conceive without that week.
No, definitely not.
The detox that came with it.
Yeah, I think so we checked in there in February. I think the December before I was away, and also had a bit of just contract work can be quite hectic in terms of the culture and the drinking, and I started drinking a little bit more than I should be, and that's also a whole other conversation, alcohol and the pull that there is in my family kind of lineage towards that. And I grew up in a massive drinking culture. 20s, basically drank all the time. Partied it up continuously, but basically December culminated in me basically spending New Year's in hospital in West Africa, because I ran through a glass door because I've been drinking too much, and then it just spiraled into chaos, and then I cut my legs open, spent a night in hospital. It was like another rock bottom moment where I was like, fuck, my life's a mess, like what am I doing? I'm lying here in this hospital.
Guys, I get a message from a random stranger saying, your fiance's in hospital, don't worry. That's all I heard.
And
for a full day, he's up in West Africa.
And I didn't even have my phone with me. Nothing. I was literally lying.
You thought you were going to die that night. I mean, from septic shock or something. I mean,
they
left you there.
My leg was cut open quite badly, and I could see the muscles in my calf.
They left you there overnight because the doctor wasn't going to come.
Yeah, there was no doctor to help me, and the next day they stitched me up, and I think that was probably the most painful thing I've ever experienced. So that was a big shock, and I know myself, and I know that when those kind of things happen to me, it's because I'm living out of alignment, and the universe kind of slaps me back. And then if I don't pay attention, the signs get louder and louder and louder. And I'd actually had a crazy dream the night before it happened, like a premonition. And in the dream, it was wild how there was glass shattering, a window shattering. I had the gun, and this is also kind of off topic, but I was playing with fire, essentially, the symbolism with the gun, and I shot the gun by mistake, went through a window and smashed a window. And it was this weird dream that left me like something bad, like I was playing with fire, something I shouldn't have been done, and then this window shattered. And for me, I knew that I was drinking. I was drinking for the wrong reasons, and I was drinking a bit too much. And then that night I ran through a glass window and shattered, and like the whole dream knew, like it was such a premonition. And so the universe and whatever, my higher self was talking to me, and I could feel it, and I knew I was out of alignment, and I was like, shit. But then again, through that rock bottom, every time I've hit rock bottom, it's been like another catapult the other direction. And so then it was like, okay, we knew we needed the detox week. I needed to check in with our burger. It had been 2 years, and
I was definitely also living out of alignment, and I think that's in a sense, I almost feel like the universe was already preparing me then for our baby boy. I was heavily drinking a lot of caffeine on an empty stomach, training too hard, not really eating as much as I should have, not so much of a balanced diet, and then obviously drinking way too much. And my body was like, that's enough. And
your body is super sensitive. So anybody
so
doesn't know,
sensitive.
Tara is the most sensitive person that I know in terms of anything, energies, food. You eat the wrong food, and then you feel it.
Yeah.
So you always feel things a lot more.
And I've never really drank my whole life.
And we're back.
Yeah, I never drank my whole life, really. I went through so many periods of being the designated driver, and health was always on the forefront of my mind, and being fit and healthy, and I think I have my parents to thank for that. But yeah, just going back to the December, I think because you weren't here, I was trying to also fill a gap and kind of numb myself to you being away for so long all the time that I just,
Yeah, when you're lonely, I find there's more tendency, like I think that's addiction, a lot of that is, that it's trying to grasp onto something to fill that gap.
Yes.
Whether that's vaping, that highly addictive substance, or alcohol, or whatever it is that I would find when I was more lonely or more stressed out and living out of alignment, just finding something to fill that void. Whereas when we're together, that's most of the time filled.
But it's crazy though, because for me, the only thing that really makes me change my habits and my lifestyle is when I'm forced to. It's easy to be like, oh yeah, caffeine's not good for fertility, but let me just have a coffee every day.
Like I love my tobacco, you love your coffee.
I love my coffee, and so I needed those stomach ulcers to really force me, like, okay, and I still tried. I mean, I had multiple stomach ulcers that crippled me in pain, and I would still try have coffee in the morning. The point where I had to be like, no, actually, this is doing.
And you were having 2 coffees when I was gone.
Yeah.
So not just 1, 2.
Yeah.
And with it,
So we both kind of hit rock bottom by the beginning of the year. We didn't really start off on a great note. And then we had pre-booked our detox retreat way in advance, and it couldn't have come at a better time for both of us.
We both kind of crawled in there like, please, I need to reset.
Help us.
Need to reset. And it was an incredible reset. Also, that's a whole separate conversation. But
it was a magic week. It really was. And everything leading up to it allowed us to conceive our boy.
Yeah.
Who is kicking away at the moment.
Yeah. He's fast approaching. So yeah, that was crazy, because also, we conceived basically the night before we left, and at the end of the week of detoxing, colonics, all the things, the
parasite cleansing,
the cleansers, the liver flushes, and then I done a iboga journey. You done a mushroom journey.
We had done San Pedro.
That
was beautiful.
And that was fucking awesome, and it was such a wholesome week, as they always are. You kind of leave, they just reset, and
we felt superhuman when we left there.
Yeah, you feel just on top of the world after a great week like that, and like having all these realizations and deep journeys, and then leaving there knowing, okay, cool, we're into like another chapter now. Okay, that was after the first iboga week with student Natasha, That's when I left and was like, okay, we can start a business now. We can do all these things, because before that I didn't have the confidence to do any of that. And so these kind of weeks, can't stress enough how pivotal they can be for your life, because one big experience can change your whole life.
Yes.
And if you're brave enough to take those steps, I'm not saying this for everybody, but like, we could easily have been playing it small still, and our life would have been exactly the same as it was 4 years ago if we didn't potentially put ourselves out there and be like, okay, cool, let's face some of these things. Let's go into this natural medicine world. And I love it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I reflect back now, the first iBurger journey, I needed to hear my child's cry to activate my desire to have a child, to then act on that desire, even though it was the wrong timing, go through the suffering, which then inevitably led me to do the lifestyle changes and the work and the growth, to then return back to that week of detox where I wasn't supposed to do iBurger 2, but my body was a bit too weak. But even still, those, like you say, those pivotal moments, those medicine journeys, they really do highlight the most important areas of your life that need work.
Yeah.
And change it for the better. It's magic. It really is.
No, it is. And I'm not going to go into the whole story, but that first iBurger journey, when I was in conversation, which I would only say is my higher self, I was like, when can I come back? And I said, can I come back in 1 year? And I was like, no. 2 years, yes. And I was like, I remember like thinking, shit, this is so long. I want to come back and experience all this incredible, mind-blowing experience. And so I was like, okay, I have to respect the medicine. I can't force these things. And it took 2 years of integration of like leaving a job, starting a business, doing all these things, going, and then like, okay, coming back 2 years later, being like, this last 2 years has been incredible, but also life gets tough, and you can't live in a detox retreat all your life, even though it's so amazing when you're there. You need those resets, but then you have to come back into the matrix, into the real world, and you have to live in this crazy day and age, and it does start to wear and tear on you. And so
for those weeks are almost like windscreen wipers for your eyes. They just take away that mist, that fog that kind of builds up.
Give you that clarity again.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, little did we know 2 years later would be when we're going to conceive our child as well. So there's so many crazy mind-bending kind of contemplations on it all. It's like, is everything pre-planned and destined, or is there like this tug of like, we do have free will, but also there is a bigger plan that we can't see? And so that mind game is also quite interesting.
That can be spoken to as well with how we started planning our wedding and how that was totally out of alignment for us.
Wedding planning, what a fucking crazy industry
what
that
a
is.
Nightmare,
that
guys.
Definitely was like a parasite that gripped your mind there.
Wow, I did not expect to become one of those bridezillas, as they call them. But
Tara became weirdly obsessed with everything wedding when we initially started.
It's crazy.
We set a date, and then all of a sudden Tara just went crazy. She sent out like,
I sent out invitations way too soon.
She sent out save the dates before we even had a date. And like, she just got completely obsessed with everything wedding. And I was like, oh no, who have you become?
But I think a lot of women can resonate. I mean, you get so excited about your wedding day and you start planning, and it's one, they always, you plan it out. So it's in stages. You get your venue, then you get the photographers, the videographers, and it kind of works backwards, And once you're in that industry, everything initially sounds ludicrous, but because everything is ludicrous, you start thinking it's normal. And after one thing after another, halfway through wedding planning, with the date being the same date as our baby boy's now due date, and at the time, halfway through, you brought me back to reality, and you helped me see that this is actually not what we want. We don't want the massive, big, expensive wedding, but rather something more intimate. So we backtracked, and the universe then gave us our baby boy.
I think, the problem was I had just gone back. There had been a lot of shifts in terms of, I think financially was the issue, because anyway, I joined another company, and there was good money coming in, but we had all these deposits we needed to pay. So as this money came in, I had to pay all these deposits. But it just felt like, we prioritizing this wedding coming up with all the money coming in, and we don't we're like just playing with the idea of like, okay, all this money we're spending on a wedding, we could put down like R500,000 deposit on a house, or we can pump all that money into the business and fast track it so that in 5 years we have so much money that having a wedding won't even matter.
Yes.
So it's just the time prioritization of, okay, it's not like to say that the wedding industry, for like, if you have millions and spending $500,000 on a wedding is nothing to you, then by all means go and get all that stuff. But I think it's just a priority, and so
Yeah, we weren't in the position to do that at
we
the
weren't in the
time.
we could do it, but it was just so stupid. It was living stupidly to do that. And like you said, I think the wedding industry itself is such a off-putting, like, gross exaggeration of how they manipulate emotions, because you put wedding on anything and the people charge through the fucking roof.
Yeah.
Because they...
I mean, we were going to pay, even just for an Airbnb, it was going to be normal rates. And as soon as I said, oh, we'll have our wedding there, you know, on the day, suddenly now there's wedding charges on the same place you were just going to spend a night or two. Yeah. So
I think a breaking point for me as well, you met with somebody who was like the decor or something, and then all of a sudden they sent you a proposal to like do decor at the wedding, and I just looked at it and it was like 30 or 40,000 rand or something. I was like, but this is fucking madness for somebody to put some flowers on a table, and like I was like, no, and I just like, it just spiraled out of control and it's the industry that knows that. They play on the emotions, and they're like, oh, it's your big day, so you shouldn't question spending all this money on a wedding if you really are so in love and all these things. And so I think it was just
it just warped our perception of, you know, reality of weddings. I mean, unless you think about it, everyone's going to say, oh, you're going to have a nice big wedding. You know, even family sometimes expects it.
I know. And then you have to invite. Also, the thing was, we had a minimum of like 80 people at the wedding venue, but we didn't really think it all through. Like, as most things, we just kind of went with it. And then it was like, oh, we actually need to have a minimum of 80 people. But then going through and like inviting everybody as we know, it was like, half these people actually don't genuinely want there. And now I've got to pay for them to be there because I have to fill up the minimum person quantity for our big day. And it was like, it became about everybody else and everything else besides us.
Start having a bitter taste to it,
Yeah, it left such a bitter taste. All these things that just added up, and the energy and time consumption that it took. Like, I was at that stage really hell-bent on trying to grow the business, as it was still in a very infancy stage.
And I was
and you were obsessed with the wedding stuff, and I was like, listen, I need you to be involved with the business with me, otherwise we're not going to have a business, because now we focus on the wedding, and then we sit like idiots. So I was getting frustrated at that. We weren't prioritizing what we were focusing on. And
it's actually quite crazy too. I mean, planning a wedding is a big job, and that's why they have wedding planners who that is their career.
Yeah.
But planning a wedding for one day, for us, we aren't in the position to spend a whole year focusing on that. You know, we want to grow our business, we want to start a family, we want to buy a house. So for us, wasting countless hours on planning a wedding was just not in alignment with us. And so we backtracked and we pulled out.
Thank God, because I think I was also during that December period we spoke about, and like it was... And I think we all know this, when we're doing things that seem logically correct and like seem like the right thing to do, and there's so many examples of this. Even now with we leased a place for the business, which we didn't end up using, and we had to cancel the lease. What a nightmare that was! But all those decisions, the same with the business. Sometimes you're doing things, you can feel in your gut that there's something not right about it, and as when you're forcing things that just aren't meant to be the case, you feel it, and then you can avoid those feelings, and you can pretend like, it is what it is. But I think we all know, and then when you make the right decisions, you feel it. You're like, okay, this is relief.
It was a massive relief when we cancelled the wedding.
Yeah, and we still lost a bit of money, but it is what it is. And it's just like, again, school fees. Like, fuck, we got caught. We almost got completely caught. But luckily we woke up, we pulled out, okay. And it's just a continuous, all these life lessons.
I really think that the business started doing really well as well after we pulled out. Because I really was then focused on the business.
Yeah, and you were, exactly. And I think the business has also grown proportionately to the amount of energy that we put into it. And that's been the most interesting thing. I've spoken to Peter about this. And for those of you who don't know Peter, he's the owner of Harmonic Mycology, and he was also on the podcast a while back, and he's become a good friend of mine. And just talking about business and like one of the interesting things is I have noticed that if I stop putting energy into the business and I just expect it to kind of run, everything slows down. But the minute I start doing things, even if it's not like necessarily related to making sales come in. There's like a direct relation to the energy that you're putting into this thing that is an extension of you, to then the results that come with it. And that's been, the more input, the more output. And the more we've been now focusing more as we've been growing, the more it's been growing, and that growth, it's becomes exponential, and it becomes quite exciting.
Yeah, your energy is directly linked to this business.
I know.
When you have a bad day, we get no sales.
I know. It's so frustrating because I can't have any bad days. I have to pull my shit together.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of made you question partying and stuff, because you know the next day you're going to feel like shit, and then no sales are going to come in.
No sales happening when I'm hungover. But if I start my day and I go jump in the ocean, I go to yoga, and I just like feel on top of the world, like sales just fucking rolling.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's always when I'm feeling abundant, that abundance comes.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we had our best 2 months, the last 2 months, and like crazy jumps in sales. And basically those 2 months I've been sober. And again, it's like everything is interconnected, like every single thing in our lives. Well, we think everything's kind of separate, but everything's interconnected. So when you're feeling better and you're living better, you're probably going to be doing better at your work. You're going to get better results. So everything's interconnected.
Yeah, your energy of attraction is so much better, and you're held accountable. We're held accountable for all of our actions.
Yeah.
Most people don't understand that or see that.
Yeah.
Or notice that.
It's crazy.
So, we did what was right for us, guys, and we
cancelled the plans. We eloped last week.
We are married, husband and wife.
Yeah. And
it was super simple. We went to court, and then we had a nice lunch afterwards, and it was actually perfect.
I think it was the perfect, even if we don't ever get married. Now we still do want to do a little marriage celebration. One day we want to do the white dress and the, sorry, 2 seconds there, love. Okay, never mind. Is still, I'm just going to put my phone off because I'm getting a call here, and I just want to put it onto flight mode. So that is still recording there. Yeah, so even if we don't get married, because I know we want to do a small little celebration sometime. With
we don't want to have if we don't want to have a ceremony, but I think we do when baby boy's born.
Yeah, we do want to have like a little wedding ceremony and do the white dress and the first dance and all of that, but it's going to be small and intimate.
Yeah, I'm really visioning something like up the coast, a little Airbnb, something quaint, small, a little braai, some fairy lights, our closest friends and family at the time, and our little boy dancing around with us. I think that's going to be so awesome. I think that's going to be
fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And that'll be at a point when we not putting all our resources into just that. And so just doing things in the right order. But even if we never get to that, what our elopement was perfect. It was unplanned. We went to court. We got it done. Yeah. We went for a quick stroll through the gardens in Cape Town. It was awesome. It was so unplanned. We just
had our best friends be our photographers with iPhones.
Yeah, we got photos with iPhones. And then we had a lunch with the family, and that was it. Perfect. And yeah, it's just the simple things, actually.
That was a very good lesson for me specifically.
Yeah.
That you don't need the big fancy lights, camera action for it to be special.
Yeah, you don't need all those things, and I think the society we live in promotes all of that. Especially women get sucked into it with social media, but guys as well. But I think the pull is definitely stronger there.
But I was speaking to Erin about it, one of my best friends, and she was even saying, social media and the internet, as much as it's an incredible tool, it can also be the reason you get sucked into unnecessary things. I mean, all of a sudden, you type wedding once and you get 101 different things about a wedding that now suddenly you didn't think you needed, but they're telling you now need it. Like things like neon signs and, background to take photos and this table decor and stuff. You
get sucked into. It's almost like the pregnancy industry that you've been sucked into now, being pregnant, making you lose your mind half the time. Thank God. Yeah, that's been tough with me being away.
That's been tough, but I feel like that's a whole nother episode.
That is a whole other episode.
I would love to talk about my anxieties around the pregnancy and how the miscarriage has impacted me mentally and emotionally. And you being away, and then just, hopefully I can speak to other women who are probably going through the same thing, because I didn't realize that more than 50% of women experience miscarriages in their life. And
that's also the thing. I mean, when the miscarriages happened, all the women that came forward, and then realizing after a while, it's like, oh, it's actually normal miscarriages, but nobody speaks about it.
No one speaks about it.
So you think there's something wrong with your body, and meanwhile, it's actually a very common thing.
It is, but it doesn't make it easier.
No, for sure.
And it definitely does impact your future pregnancies and the trust you have in your body. So, I'd love to speak about that in the future, and that's why we're starting season 2.
Yeah, I think we wrap it up What do you think? And then we dedicate a whole
I would like to dedicate a whole podcast
to the pregnancy journey, because it's been rough. Let's put it that way.
It has not been easy. I'd like to talk about the real pregnancy
the real
experience,
not the ones you see online.
Yeah, not the fancy maternity shoots, which I did do the other day, and I'm excited to get those photos back. But it's definitely not easy. It's really not easy. And also the steps leading up to the pregnancy, I think, was crucial. And I get a lot of questions, especially on my social media, about my pregnancy and leading up to it, and all the things that are going on. So maybe we can even on our page pop a little Q&A or questions box, and people can ask questions that we can then answer on the podcast afterwards.
I think so. Yeah, just enough for the social media thing we were chatting about just now. I think it's so interesting. You got to be so careful with it. And I think even for me, I've had this love-hate relationship with social media, where I go through periods where I just deactivate my Instagram, I deactivate it all and just stay away. And then I find myself to be more at peace, more happier, more productive. But at the same time, I recognize the utility in it. And I think it's a great place to find value, because some of the most awesome stuff, lessons-wise, you can find online. But it's all about... I think Eric Godzier, he said, I saw in one of his posts, like, it can be like the new Alexandria library or something, where you can get access to anything, or it can be a complete wasteland. You choose. I think cleaning up even the people you follow and all those things, and just trying to navigate it with caution. But I think coming into a season now where I think the online presence will be a bit more with the podcast and with our page and building a brand and building a community, I think it's quite cool.
And also a big reason why we're starting season 2 is that we want to add more value to the social media platform. We want to share everything that we're learning with everyone. So hopefully, even if just one person gains from what we talk about, that'll be worth it.
I think so. I think, and we're never going to profess to have the complete answers to things, but we can chat about our experiences, and that's... People like it, don't like it, it's irrelevant, to be honest. And I think, I hope people enjoy it.
I think so. I think they will.
I think on that note, we should wrap up. First episode of season 2. I just want to say that if there's anybody that's made it this far, right till the end, and they don't know anything about us, check us out online, lifeexpanded.co.za. You can go to our Instagram page. It's also just LifeXpanded, 1E, one word. And if you're interested in any of our products and it's your first time, use the code LifeXpanded20 and you'll get 20% off any of your products. And if you have any questions, reach out. We'll be more than happy to chat and give you some advice as to protocols and just overall how to embrace it. I think on that note,
use this season as well to really break down some products.
I think we'll chat about a whole bunch of things that we've learned with regards to products and microdose and all those kind of things. Because I get questions all the time, and I think making more episodes online where we can just plug in and listen to will be easier for me than having to repeat myself to so many people, where I can just be like, find a podcast on this topic, and then you can listen to our opinion on it. Because a lot of people are suffering, a lot of people who are sick, a lot of people who are just been led down a path due to the society we live in, which doesn't really promote health. But if I don't stop talking, I could start a whole other podcast. You can
have a whole nother podcast in the pharmaceutical industry.
There's so much to chat about in season 2. I hope you guys are ready for it. And otherwise,
thanks, guys.
This has been cool. First episode together, eh?
Thanks, my love.
I love you.
I love you too.
Yeah, that's a wrap.